Rory Jansen, an aspiring writer, lives with his girlfriend Dora in New York. Rory is a young, struggling writer, fighting to make his voice heard. He likes cheap bottles of wine and has nothing to do with his days but wander the streets. However, at night, when the rest of the city sleeps, he writes. Rory tries to publish his first novel, but he gets rejected by publishers repeatedly. He continues to write, believing that he has a story to tell. He sends his work anywhere they might publish him, but all he hears back is rejection. As his writings do not work, he is forced to take a day job. He finds a position at one of the biggest publishing houses in New York, hoping to make some connections. Without even knowing it, Rory and Dora settle into the routine of their lives. On a Friday afternoon, they get married at City Hall and honeymoon in Paris. On their honeymoon, Dora gifts Rory an old briefcase from an antique shop.
I'm gonna get it for you.
Their honeymoon comes to an end as they return to New York. After returning to New York, Rory goes to meet a publisher with his new book, on which he has been working for 3 years. The publisher really likes the book and says, "It's artistic, it's subtle. It's a piece of art, but as Rory is an unpublished writer, he won't be able to attract the market with this book." In the following days, Rory faces numerous rejections and is at the lowest point of his career. One day, as he inspects the antique briefcase which Dora gifted him, he finds an old but masterfully written manuscript in it. The story and writing are so gripping that Rory cannot stop thinking about it. As Rory becomes frustrated and worried about his career, he wakes up one night and starts typing the story from the manuscript to his laptop. He types whole night and goes to sleep. In the morning, when Rory wakes up, he sees Dora in tears. Dora goes to Rory and kisses him. She has read the story Rory typed on his laptop last night. Thinking Rory has written the story, she becomes moved and tells Rory it is his best work and he should publish it. On the following morning, Rory goes to Mr. Cutler, the publisher in whose office he works, and gives him the manuscript to read and consider for publishing. Days pass, weeks become months, and Rory hears nothing from Mr. Cutler. One day, as Rory is doing his usual work at the office, Mr. Cutler calls him and informs him that he really liked what Rory has written, and he would love to publish his work. Rory signs the contract with the publishing house. His book gets published and becomes an instant success. Overnight, Rory becomes the darling of New York literary work. On a crisp and clear autumn evening, Rory sits on a park bench and meets an old man named Irons. The old man asks Rory,
"How does it feel to be somebody everybody knows?"
He says,
"I read your book. I liked it very, very much."
The old man tells Rory he has a story to tell him.
"I do have a story."
Rory could write the story. He would give it to him.
"Well, then maybe you could give me a little credit."
Sitting on the park bench, the old man starts to tell the story to Rory. It's 1944, and he was a soldier in the army. He was sent to Paris right at the end of World War II, where he fell in love with Celia, a French waitress. They eventually got married and had a daughter. But the baby always kept crying, and no doctor could cure her. The baby died a few days after birth. Unable to cope with the loss, Celia left him and moved to her parents' house. His daughter died, and Celia left him. With this tremendous ache in his heart, he poured all his heart into his writing. He didn't eat, didn't sleep, and after 2 weeks, the manuscript was finished. Then he went to find his wife, but Celia hadn't recovered from her child loss yet, so she begged him to return to Paris. Leaving the manuscript to Celia, he returned to Paris. Celia read the manuscript and was overwhelmed. After a few weeks, Celia returned to Paris, but mistakenly, she left the manuscript on the train. Upon coming home, Irons asked Celia, "Did you read my story?" She said she did, and it's in the suitcase. But when he checked, it wasn't in the suitcase. Irons went to the railway station to search for it, but it wasn't there either. After this incident, Celia tried to repair their marriage, but they eventually divorced. Irons never recovered from the loss of his manuscript because it had saved him from the pain of his daughter's loss. Irons tells Rory,
This is where it really gets interesting.
long after all of this faded into the past, Irons wandered into a bookstore and came across a new book, which was Rory's book. As he opened the book and started reading, he realized it is his story, which Celia had lost on the train to Paris. Irons said to Rory,
These are my words, my stories.
and left Rory sitting alone on the park bench. Rory sat on the bench for a few hours. Then he decided the only thing to do was to set the truth free. He went to his wife and told her the whole truth.
I didn't write the book.
After hearing the truth, Dora got angry and asked Rory.
Did you think about what this was going to do to us? To you?
Devastated, Dora left Rory's apartment. Rory went to Mr. Cutler, told him the truth, and told him he wants to give credit for the story to the old man, Irons. Mr. Cutler said it is not possible, as it would destroy the reputation of this publishing house. Dora met Rory in the park and said,
Do you think you're the only person on this earth who's ever made a mistake?
You cannot let this one mistake destroy you. Rory was in torment, and Dora proposed, can we just try to put this behind us and move on? Rory went in search of Irons to pay him all his earnings from Irons' story. He found him working in a plant nursery and said,
I want to fix this. I'm going to take my name off the book. I'm going to tell everybody the truth.
Irons said.
And you're even more of a fool than I thought you were.
Rory said, I just want to make things right. Irons regrettingly told,
My tragedy was that I love words more than I loved the woman who inspired me to write them.
Irons said to Rory, we all make our choices, but the hard part is living with them. Finally, Rory knew what he had to do to live with his choices. So, he forgave himself and continued with his life.
The Window Tears by Rory Jansen.